It is an event that leaves the global population in awe. It is the height of modernity, the first ever sports event to be televised. Its host is Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist German government. It is the 1936 Olympics, an event meticulously designed to showcase the Germans as a superior race and frame the Führer as a heroic imperial host of fabulous games. It is also a perversion of the original idea of the modern Olympics as a promotion of peace and friendly competition. Welcome to Between Two Wars, a chronological summary of the interwar years, covering all facets of life, the uncertainty, hedonism, and euphoria, and ultimately, humanity's descent into the darkness of the Second World War. I'm Indy Neidell. The story of the Berlin Olympics starts in 1931. Before Hitler is even in power, Germany had been banned from organizing international sports events after the Great War and wants to get back into the game by bidding on the 1936 Summer and Winter Olympics. In an eventful International Olympic Committee, IOC, meeting in Barcelona in April 1931, Berlin is selected as the host city. Now, it's supposed to be just another modern Olympics like the 9 previous games. But then in 1933, Hitler grabs power and everything changes. Now, you might assume that the Olympics are a nice present for Hitler, who doesn't have to do anything to get them, but can use them to push his political agenda over international boundaries. But that is not quite the situation. See, the Nazis detest the Olympics and everything they stand for. They're not as much into sports as you might think. Well, not yet. They consider modern sports to be universalistic and not in line with German values. And the Olympics are even worse, as they were designed to be a celebration of universal sportsmanship, fair competition, and equality. In other words, a product of everything the Nazis hate. Or, as essay man Bruno Malitz writes in Athleticism of the National Socialist Movement in 1933, the Jewish leadership of international sport and those infected by the Jews, the pacifists, and the intercultural conciliators have no place in Germany. They are worse than cholera. So it's understandable that Karl Diem, Secretary General of the Berlin Olympic Organizing Committee, is somewhat pessimistic when he is called to Hitler's office on March 16, 1933 to discuss the games. He fears that Hitler is going to just cancel the event, but that is not what happens. Instead, Hitler and Joseph Goebbels, Reichsminister for Propaganda, have concocted a plan to make the 1936 Olympics into their most prominent and global propaganda project to date. But before we get to that, let's backtrack a bit to better understand what the Nazis have against modern sports and why especially modern Olympics and its ideals don't really fit into the Nazi ideology. For that, we have to go back to 1896. That year, the first modern Olympics took place in Athens. Frenchman Pierre de Coubertin was the man leading the effort to revive the ancient Olympic Games. And he had a grand vision that transcended a mere sports event. He described it as Olympism. Now, Coubertin was profoundly impressed by the then modern British education system, which, unlike the French and German systems, was not built entirely on strict discipline, but included ideas of self-revelation and physical education, and most importantly, team sports. Convinced that this explained Anglo-Saxon success in economy and geopolitics, he wanted to import this to the European mainland. He introduced sports and athletics into the French education system. With great success, through Coubertin and his compatriots, the first French sport clubs were established, and many educational institutions founded athletic programs, bringing tennis, rugby, and football to France. But still, in the France of the 1890s, sports was something very liberal and very progressive. And to many others, the international aspect of Coubertin's efforts was damning. People like the radical political agitator Pascal Grousset did see the value of sports, but gave it a heavy nationalist spin, only promoting games that originated in France. So Coubertin, though not necessarily anti-patriotic, had to face many accusations of importing English culture into France. Not only that, his ideal of Olympism was founded on, self-revelation, peace, solidarity, mutual respect, and international understanding, or even cooperation. Sports was to be at the center of the peaceful development of humankind. Optimistic? Idealistic? Okay, sure, maybe, but that was what the Olympics were a symbol of from the moment they first took place. Although others saw the Olympics as being more about differences than any sort of unity. One of them was the poet, journalist, and fascist integral nationalist thinker Shalmar Ross, who you may remember from our episodes on French fascism and fascism in general. He said to Coubertin about the Olympics that, "I see that your internationalism does not kill national spirit, it strengthens it." And he wasn't entirely wrong. To many, the Olympics became a sportive war, where nationalism caused countries to aim for the gold medals and not friendly sportsmanship or competition. This was especially the case in games where two competing nations faced real-world tension at the same time. And Olympic committees were nationalistic kind of by default, representing political states and not necessarily sport nations. In any case, although the Olympics originated with an idea of internationalism, they became a tool for nationalism in the early 1900s. And this precisely is why Hitler and Goebbels are not opposed to hosting the Olympic Games in 1936. The Nazis' sudden readiness to embrace the Games raises some concerns at the IOC. The three German IOC members are questioned about Jewish participation on the German national team. They state that as a principle, German Jews shall not be excluded from German teams. But while Karl Diem and German IOC representative Karl Ritter von Halt keep repeating this promise time and again, German sports clubs are actively banning Jews from participating. In 1935, after the Nuremberg race laws are issued, all Jews working for the German Olympic Committee are dismissed. There are protests and international calls for a boycott of the Games. But there's also support from abroad. For instance, Avery Brundage, chairman of the American Olympic Committee, soon claims that every call for a boycott is, quote, obviously written by a Jew or someone who has succumbed to Jewish propaganda. Subsequently, Henri de Baillet-Latour, Coubertin's successor as chairman of the IOC, is also furious at the Jewish boycott campaign. And still, a boycott does have wide support from non-Jewish groups and individuals in many places. In 1935, 43% of all Americans agree with the U.S. not sending a delegation. But these voices are soon silenced as Brundage just ignores them, and the American sports associations vote to go to Germany. So Hitler gets his cake, and now he gets to eat it too. The second step in his plans is to use the Olympics for his own ends to incorporate sports into German life. As I said, Germany had not embraced sports or team sports the same way that France and Britain had. It was still seen as a liberal hobby. Other than boxing maybe, the Nazis didn't apply team sports to their education programs or workers and youth organizations. Well, all of this changes now that Hitler has seen the light of the Olympics. In 1934, the German League of the Reich for Physical Exercise, DRL, is created under the leadership of SA man Hans von Schammer und Osten and changes the nature of sports in the Third Reich. Together with the Olympic organizers Diem and Ritter von Halt, even creating a new German sports ideal. I already told you about how the French adopted British ideas of self-revelation and collective sports to replace discipline, and how Marat saw that this could be used to enhance the national spirit. Well, these three now take both of these concepts to the next level. All sports organizations are incorporated into the new DRL. Physical exercise becomes a staple of German work culture, education, youth movements, and the military. It is to promote a new ideal of healthy athleticism and the physical superiority of the Aryan race. A healthy, fit body becomes synonymous with the health of the German nation, and muscular aesthetics becomes synonymous with propaganda depictions of Germans. Popular government-sponsored magazines, such as Sport und Stadt, are founded with stylized pictures of Nazis engaged in sports, and attractive young people of the SA, the Bund Deutsche Mädel, and Hitlerjugend in muscular motion. So, within a few years, sports goes from being a socialist hobby to being the standard of German unity and health, and a signifier of racial superiority. And the 1936 Olympics, that shall be the crown on all of this. It has to be magnificent. And it is. Monumental sports facilities are built, like the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, which holds 100,000 people, an open-air pool, a state-of-the-art Olympic village with modern training facilities. No expenses spared. What to many today are gaudy, caricatured, oversized representatives of Aryan athletes are truly impressive to visitors from both Germany and abroad. New traditions speak to the imagination of imperial memories as well, like the relay of the Olympic torch from Olympia in Greece to the stadium in Berlin. The marathon winner in 1896, Spiridon Lauis, is invited to Berlin to crown Hitler with an olive branch. During the opening ceremony, the German airship Hindenburg flies over the stadium, trailing a gigantic Olympic flag. Along with the sports events are cultural displays, like a series of dances featuring a chorus of 1,000 and 140 dancers. There are operas, concerts, and luxurious dinners in the countryside, hosted by Goebbels and full of international high-profile guests. Things that today are staples of the Olympics and other major sporting events had never been seen before in 1936. The swastika is, of course, featured on banners, flags, uniforms, and buildings. The Hitler salute had already been incorporated into the German sports culture, but now many of the visiting teams even salute Hitler by bringing up their right arms as they walk past his stage during the opening ceremony. And yet, Adolf Hitler is not at the center of it all, at least not by design. The IOC had feared that he would turn this whole thing into his own personal celebration and use it as a stage for his famous oratory, so they only allow him a single line in the opening ceremony. "I declare the games of the 11th Olympiad of the modern era to be open." That's all, that's it. Jokingly, Hitler told Baillet Latour, "Count, I'll take the trouble to learn it by heart." I know, that is actually kind of funny. But whether or not Baillet Latour wanted it or not, the games are a celebration of Hitler, the Nazi Party, and Nazi Germany. Famed Nazi propaganda filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl is commissioned to create two awe-inspiring movies about the games, Olympia 1 and Olympia 2. While producing these, she establishes many sports filming techniques still used today, like zipline cameras, cameras with automatic dollies pulled along a track, multi-jointed jib arms, and telescopic lens film cameras along the field. Everyone who visits the games is presented with a polished, perfected, and staged image of Germany and its rulers. The games, and sports in general, become a celebration of German nationalism and nationalism in general, a recurring connection between the antique world and the German regime provides a sense of imperial grandeur and political legitimacy. But here's a perhaps unexpected thing. Racism is not at all at the center of the games. You see, Diem is well aware that he needs to hit the positive, and oppression, suppression, and hatred is really hard to spin as a positive thing to people who have not drunk the Kool-Aid, if you know what I mean. So instead, it's pageantry where the sky is the limit. Nazism is framed as progress, health, and happiness in monumental celebrations. In that sense, the Olympics are a perfect propaganda triumph for Adolf Hitler and his Nazis. Or are they? Because the actual games might suggest something different. I am aware I have not talked about the games themselves yet, and I'm not really going to, since, you know, it was for the most part a regular sports event with sports. Norwegian Ivar Ballengrund won 3 out of 4 speed skating races in the Winter Games. Great Britain won the ice hockey against 1932 Olympic winner Canada in a thrilling match. Yep, the Brits beat the Canucks. True story. For Germany, the massive investment in sports does pay off. They win by far the most medals in the Summer Games, leading with 33 gold. The US is second with 24 gold. Hungary comes in third with 10. But the most remarkable athletic achievement is one that does not match the Nazi ideals of the physical superiority of the Aryan race at all. African-American athlete Jesse Owens wins 4 gold medals, setting the Olympic record for the 200 meters and the world records for the 100-meter dash and the 400-meter relay. Again, unexpectedly, the Nazi-controlled German press does not understate this achievement. They seem to cover and even celebrate his sportsmanship without racial bias. This fair treatment of black athletes is actually a planned effort by the Ministry of Propaganda to reshape the global public image of the German regime as less racist than you thought. It's a documented and a purposeful jibe at the US, where black athletes, including Owens, still have to ride at the back of the bus and are not even featured in Southern newspapers. And so, Hitler appears to have won the Olympic Games. He establishes a global image of grandeur and magnificence, but also a public image of racial superiority and unity, while at the same time keeping global public opinion at bay. This all culminates in an interview with Pierre de Coubertin in Le Journal, who says that these grandiose games, organized with Hitlerian strength and discipline, had brilliantly served the Olympic ideal. So even Coubertin, who had brought forth the modern Olympics with internationalist and pacifist ideals, goes for the German propaganda narrative. It may be unfair to say that Hitler abused sports for his propaganda. While he definitely used the Olympics and sports to spread his narrative domestically and to share a robust and magnificent image of Germany globally, it was also, simply and magnificently, the Olympic Games. It's been said that the 1936 Olympics did more to further Coubertin's vision than Hitler's. And sure, sports may have always had a political use before and after Hitler. And yes, many of the symbols and rituals that the Germans introduced in the Olympics are still used to this day, like the symbolism of the Olympic torch relay, the Olympic inauguration ceremony, sports filming, and so on, are used because it transcends far beyond Nazism. But we should not forget that Hitler used this event to enhance his image and obscure the industrial-scale, state-organized oppression, suppression, torture, and murder going on in Germany outside of the Olympic venues. And this false image of Nazism will prove essential as Hitler moves to expand his national network of racial hatred by cajoling the other nations of Europe into tacitly or even actively accepting his expansionist, bellicose plans that will soon escalate into a global conflict. And yet, the image that will survive far beyond the adulation of the Führer, dressed in the emperor's clothes, stronger in human memory than the magnificent sights, the banners, the Hitler salutes, national racial chauvinism, is the exact opposite of what Hitler wanted to achieve. It is that image of Jesse Owens rising above normal human limits to show us that greatness has no race. Greatness is not created by demagogues and cannot be stopped by demagoguery, because individual men and women rising above their own physical and mental limits can become an unstoppable force for the good of mankind. If you'd like to learn more about what was going on in Germany in the 1930s, you can click right here, any minute now, for a playlist about the rise of Nazism after the Great War. It goes all the way up until the outbreak of World War II. Our TimeGhost Army member of the week is Artem Pok. I mean it when I say we would not exist without people like Artem. So be like him and join the TimeGhost Army on Patreon or at timeghost.tv. Subscribe, ring that bell, and remember what Nelson Mandela said. Sport has the power to change the world. I realize this is Coca-Cola from a Coca-Cola glass. And no, we're not sponsored by them. But Coca-Cola was actually the very first sponsor of the modern Olympic Games back in 1896. See you next time.